के मनाज़िर से बज़ाहिर वो जुदा है।
It's almost impossible to justify Hazur's Friday sermons, especially for today. Hazur mentioned Sayyid Taale Ahmed for right from the start, right to the end. And you can see just from everything that he mentioned, how much he achieved in his life for someone who's only 31 years old. To have said so many things about him and to have mentioned all of his good qualities, it really made me personally reflect on myself and reflect about, what have I achieved in my life, and how can I attain such a status like that. But in reality, it's only Allah Ta'ala who chooses who his beloved are, and it's to him that Allah brought him back. I think Hazur even said he always knew how much Taleh loved Hazur, but he never knew it was to this level. Before I say anything myself, I just want to hear some things from you guys. Zaria, before I start with you, because I know we talked about this before as well. This would be good to share some of your feelings as well, and what impact this khutbah had on you personally.
The main thing that inspired me was how we live our life according to worldly terms, and he just didn't care about any of the world, and he was just everything of his life was for Khilafat. Following on from Hazur when he spoke about how he gave a talk at the Atfal rally, after khutbah, I listened to what he actually said in the YouTube video. It's on YouTube when he speaks about his experience with Hazur, and he speaks about how even when he had a parking ticket, he wrote a letter to Hazur, and someone told him to sum it up to not take Hazur's time up, and he just wrote that Hazur, pray for me, I have a financial concern. And Hazur had called him in, and he was very blessed of how close he was to Khilafat, and I guess he deserved it after how he lived his life.
Is there anything in particular that he mentioned about his qualities that you feel that you can also probably adopt into your life and work on as well?
The fact that he done biomedical science, and and he devoted his life to Jamaat, and he went into journalism. And I think one thing I adopted is because I do, inshallah, aspire to one day work for my life. So I think it doesn't matter what background you're from, you can always just go to Jamaat and devote your life. And I think that's the most inspiring part for myself.
So I think one of the things which stuck out for me, which I personally want to really work on, is especially the story about how you mentioned about how when Hazur mentioned that Murabbis in particular should read 1 hour of Tahajjud. And one day when he walked into MTA, his colleagues realized that he was really tired. And one of the Murabbis asked him, why are you so tired? And he said, because Hazur instructed Murabbis to read 1 hour of Tahajjud. So I've started doing it as well. And I consider myself also on the same audience that Hazur addressed. So this left that particular Murabbi in such a state that he felt embarrassed. But this guy who's worked with Zindagi, but he's acting upon the words of his Khalifa more than I am myself. And so this is what really shows us that Dali was someone who is so special. He said that even he would go as far as to say that he loved Khilafat more than some people who have so much knowledge, but they don't show that loyalty to Khilafat like he did. And this is something which is so important for all of us to know and for us to ponder over, is that how can we always develop our relationship with Khilafat, and how can we be amongst those people that when Huzur says something to always act upon it as well, no matter what stage it's at.
When we watch a football match, we often see the commentators say, or the players themselves say, that they would run through a brick wall for a manager. And of course the work of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community is far more important than a mere football match. But I've often seen that the way Hazur addresses his workers and cares for his workers, he gives guidance with such wisdom that you become so motivated, you feel like you could actually run through a wall to fulfill the instructions of Hazrat Khalifat al-Masih.
Sabur, are you able to talk at the moment?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Nice to hear your voice, Sabur. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm alright. I hope you're all well as well.
I was talking to your father, Maulana Abdul Ghaffar Sahib, just a few days ago about this incident as well, and he was just telling me about how it's impacted the people of Ghana, and how deep it hurt everyone to have a representative of Huzur in your country, and for him to pass away on your land. Just how does that feel for you, and what are the emotions that, especially after this khutbah, for someone who is from Ghana as well?
I think just like my dad said, and from people that I spoke to in Ghana, they all felt really bad about it and how it happened and how everything just unfolded. The people that I've spoken to, within MTA in Ghana, they just say, what, we feel so bad. They can't even be in the presence of Huzur just because they feel like it's their fault that this has happened. I remember speaking to Forward in Ghana. He's basically just joined Ghana MTA from Nigeria. He wanted to go with him as well on this trip, but for some reason he couldn't. So he said to Tali that, what, I wish I could come with you, my brother, but you carry on, and obviously when you come back, we do more tour in Accra, which is a capital. So when he heard the news Forward, he's just said, what, if he was there, he could have saved. I'm like, listen, these things happens. It's Allah's is written, and for you to say if you were there, you could have saved, something like that is not something we should really be saying right now. But it's not just Forward, but so many people that work within MTA in Ghana were just saying that, what, at least we could have done something. We could do this. We could do that. I just said to them, we have to accept it. That's how bad and distraught they're all feeling in Ghana. It is a heavy loss for the whole Ahmadi community, the world really. Personally, I just felt I was speechless just after. I felt numb really after listening to Huzur Khutbah today. He's the type of person, you see him, you feel like you can't even approach him in a way because of how he, that light within him. He's such a special human being. Listening to Huzur today, I've never heard Huzur his tone like that before, never in any khutbah whatsoever. This is my first time. I would say after the loss of fourth Khalifa, that I've heard him speak or do a khutbah in this sense that got everyone really moving emotionally. Even he himself, like you could sense from his voice. We all pray that Allah grants him a love to praise and a love to place in paradise, inshallah.
I was driving in the car because I was going to Leamington to do Jummah today, and Hazur said something, and it's like Hazur was like Dali was there, and Hazur was addressing him in person. What I think was mentioned before about how the poem was written, and he wrote a secret poem and gave it to his friend and said, "Don't tell anyone this." And this bit really like struck a chord in my heart, and I felt really, really emotional that Tal is writing to Huzur, but he's not telling Huzur himself that, I love my Khalifa, but he will never know. And then for Huzur to turn around and say to him, like, I do know, and I do love you, in this kind of thing is incredibly, incredibly emotional.
शायद 2-3 साल पहले उसने एक नज़म लिखी थी जो उसने अपने किसी दोस्त को दी थी कि अपने पास रख लो और किसी को नहीं दिखानी, जो खिलाफत से ताल्लुक़ और प्यार से मुतल्लिक़ लिखी हुई थी। और इसने शुरू ही इस तरह किया था कि मैं खलीफा वक्त से सबसे ज़्यादा प्यार करता हूँ, और ख़त्म इस तरह किया था कि खलीफा वक्त से जो मुझे प्यार है और मोहब्बत है वो उन्हें कभी पता नहीं चलेगी, लेकिन ऐ प्यारे तारे, मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ कि तुम्हारे इन आखिरी अल्फाज से पहले भी मुझे पता था कि तुम्हें खिलाफत से प्यार और मोहब्बत का ताल्लुक़ था।
So as it goes, I'll just read it from the top. Tyler, he writes, I love my caliph more than the others. They only love, I'm only his lover. They crawl to his hand from far icy coasts, a wonderful host, supported by hosts. As mountains migrate for prophets and kings, when heaven comes near, they see him and sing. My silence migrate, but I love him more, whole with holiness as my soothed soul soars. When they see his face, they weep and they cry. My heart beats to tears, but my eyes are dry. But by God's promise, I'm able to boast. I swear I can prove I love him the most. They truthfully tell, disclosing their love. Humble, he blushes, embarrassed enough. For his weary ears, surely prefer Durood and takbirs, Allahu Akbar. So their queue of lovers ends at this line. I keep my secret for his sake, not mine. The lamp in my night, forever aglow. I love my caliph, but he'll never know. Such a beautiful, beautiful piece by Talib there. And it's so nice that he kept it a secret, and he kept it for himself, and he's not one to ever show off. Every time you see him, he's such a simple person, like Zaryab was saying, didn't have any care for the world. Anytime any extra money would come, he would always want to give it to the Jamaat or not have it in his hand. He was that kind of personality. And there were just some pictures of today from the burial. Mazur reading his janazah here, and then also at the burial site. Mazur actually went to visit himself for the burial, and stayed for a good over 40 minutes, just being there, being with the families and being with the loved ones. So it's honestly very, very touching. Hazur mentioned a picture in his Friday sermon today, that when he looked back at the picture, he saw Taleh here. Taleh was only 13 years old. And he realized, how sincere and how loving he was, as someone who was brought up in the system and would always attend his classes right from a young age, up to now. So it was like he was always in the atmosphere and being brought up by Huzur himself.
तकरीबन उसी रावे रहमतुल्लाह ताला की तदफीन के वक्त जब मैं कब्र के सराने खड़ा था मिट्टी डालने से पहले, तो मेरे दाएं तरफ आकर खड़ा हो गया। मैं नहीं जानता था कौन खड़ा है। अब तस्वीर देखी तो फिर मुझे अंदाज़ा हुआ कि कौन था और क्या मौका था। लेकिन इस 13 साला बच्चे ने शायद उस वक्त ये ऐद किया था कि मैं वक्फ़े नौ हूँ और अब मैंने खलीफा वक्त का मददगार बनना है, दस्ते रास्त बनना है। और फिर उसने सालों बाद अपनी तालीम मुकम्मल करके इस ऐद को पूरा किया और निभाया और खूब निभाया।
Just a special human being, because Umar Farooq even said, what touched him the most was that as they were taking him, like Huzur mentioned in his khutbah as well, he kept on saying, I love Huzur, make sure Huzur knows I love him so much. In his dying moment, he just kept telling him, tell Huzur I love him, and tell my family I love them too. But most importantly, he repeated tell Huzur I love him about 3-5 times. So it goes to show that, the love he actually had for Khilafah.
All the time, right from the beginning, he was always concerned, not about himself, but always for the Jamaat, and always put the Jamaat first. And as Zira was saying, this guy was a biomedical student who went into journalism and eventually worked his life. Someone who could have done anything with his life. A very, very bright and intelligent individual, but at the same time, so special, and loved the Jamaat and loved Khilafat so much. This is living proof that any one of us, if we really put our minds to it, if Allah chooses us to, then we can always have that same love or even more in this very day as well. So again, just always try to remain attached to Khilafat and remain attached to Jamaat, and always question yourself about how and what you can do to always better yourself, in terms of establishing this connection as well.
What struck me was that this is guy whenever he gets offered watches or anything expensive, he will always be concerned why am I getting it? I don't want to take it back and stuff.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about how much money he gets or what he gets. He's just very humble guy. I just feel like I've seen him somewhere, but I just haven't. I feel like I've seen him somewhere, but I haven't. I just feel like I know him from somewhere.
All the incredible documentaries, Huzur said that sometimes he'll be working on multiple documentaries. Talib was so capable of, he was working on so many different documentaries at one time that people were so astonished. And it's all his dedication, all his heart, and how much passion he was giving into his work.
I remember when Hazur mentioned his mother telling Hazur that when he first got his documentary in MTA, he was very excited. He was so happy that I'm getting something out of journalism and something with the Jamaat for sure, which struck me. I was like, okay, that's pretty good. That even the first thing that he ever got was like making a documentary was like really good. He thought he was getting close to Huzur, the Jamaat itself.
The one beautiful thing was about his father seeing in a dream that his son was martyred, Taleh. And before even saying it to him, Taleh came to him himself and said, "Did you see a dream that I was martyred?" And his father was shocked, like, "How did you know that I saw that?" Because then he said, Taleh said, "I saw a dream myself that, I was martyred." So such was his connection, such was his love for the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that it's like Allah was preparing him right from a young age. And for me as a father as well, his wife was giving some accounts about how he was as a father, also as a husband as well. But he used to do small things which would always keep his children in the way of Allah and always keep them attached to Jamaat. For example, whenever they used to have a nice mulaqat bazoor, he would always treat his children to ice cream or chocolates or something. I think this is God given, about how he would know stories about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just off the top of his head, and how he used to relate them to his children. And he said whenever he would tell a story to his children about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his wife says that he used to weep like a baby, that he used to weep so much that he used to become so emotional just when he used to relate these stories. And especially when he used to be in sajda and reading tahajjud or doing namaz, you could hear his voice from the other room and how much he used to cry. And that shows, how much of a person he was. He only showed it to Allah, and he wouldn't show it to anyone else. Anyone else you ask about him, you say, he's a funny guy, he's very joyful, or he's always laughing or takes interest in things, but no one will ever say that side of him because he doesn't show it to anyone. And that shows, especially from his poem, we see that his love for Khilafat and for Allah was very private, and it's something which is so beautiful as well. So yeah, Jazakallah Huda, Jazakallah guys for contributing to that. There's so many other things that we can mention, but this is one of the khutbahs where you can listen to it again and pick out so many things that we ourselves need to work on. When Riza passed away, one of the quotes which Rizu said was that his friends should learn from his good qualities and inculcate them into their lives, and this will be a way of them fulfilling their pledge to Allah Ta'ala. So all the qualities which were mentioned today in the Friday sermon, if you did miss it, then try go over it again. Try and read the summaries and pick out the things where you feel that you can definitely work on and try to improve. Because at the end of the day, we don't know how long our lives are, and we don't know what people will remember us by. So try and make it something good, and develop your relationship both with Allah and both with the Khalifa, because these are really the things that we're going to take away with us afterwards.
Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam और हज़रत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम की जिस्मानी और रूहानी आल होने का हक भी उसने अदा कर दिया, और उसको भी अल्लाह ताला ने ऐसा लिया कि आसलम की आल में से था, तो मुहर्रम के महीने में उसको भी कुर्बानी के लिए चुना। एक हीरा वाक़ई ज़िंदगी का था, जैसा मैंने कहा। अल्लाह ताला उसके दर्जात बुलंद से बुलंद करता चला जाए। उम्मीद है कि अल्लाह ताला ने उसे हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के कदमों में जगह दी होगी, बल्कि किसी ने उसकी वफ़ात के बाद ख्वाब भी देखी